My name is Dr. Michael Cerami. I am a chiropractor and owner and operator at Utah Sports and Wellness in Salt Lake City, Utah. I've been in practice at this point 38 years. I grew up outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I went to school in the early 80s, the chiropractic school in South Carolina, and I've been in Utah since 1995. The areas of my specialty are AMIT muscle activation, network spinal analysis, traditional chiropractic care. We also integrate a variety of wellness techniques, including hyperbaric oxygen therapy, FSM microcurrent. We also have 2 massage therapists and an acupuncturist in our office. FSM microcurrent is an emerging technique. It's been around about 20 years, used in all professional sports for evaluating and fixing joint dysfunction and also pain and inflammation. A lot of good research coming out behind that. Probably about 5,000 doctors worldwide using it and 13 published papers. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy, we have 2 hyperbaric oxygen therapy chambers that is used to put oxygen into the system that helps solve and take care of everything from concussions to increased wellness and performance. Network spinal analysis is a very light technique about the amount of pressure it takes to dent a marshmallow, and that's designed to reduce internal stress on the nervous system and help the body just have a better feel for itself and dissipate emotional and physical tension. My first experience with chiropractic was when I was about 13 years old, or about 1970. I was having mid-back pain and, more importantly, but seemingly unrelated, sore throats and stiff necks quite a bit. You know, as a 13-year-old, you don't know much, but thank goodness for my mom, who had talked to my aunt and suggested they take me to a chiropractor. I was also racing dirt bikes at the time, and I was hoping those 2 things weren't related. So I still remember my first chiropractic adjustment and introduction to chiropractic. It was pretty interesting. The doctor evaluated me and said, hey, it's not really related to your activities, but it's related to some spinal misalignment and a variety of other things. And I started getting adjusted somewhat regularly, but after about probably 2 or 3 months, I was really surprised. The back pain, to some degree, of course, dissipated, but more importantly to me, or more surprising, I should say, is that my sore throats and stiff necks went away. And the sore throats were really kind of a weird thing. I'd have to use that chloroseptic stuff to deaden the pain. And, that wasn't a mechanical problem. It was more of a sort of a visceral problem, and I didn't think how chiropractic could affect that, but it really caught my attention at that point. At that time as well, I remember listening to an AM radio show in Philadelphia, and there was a doctor on, every night, and I remember driving to work and back. I was a little bit older at this point, about 15 or 16 years old, and just listening and being fascinated with the human body and just really curious about how things worked. So it piqued my interest, and I sort of went down that path of trying to understand how the body worked. And again, this is early 70s, so people that are old enough, there wasn't a whole lot of information out there. Obviously, there's no internet, and really chiropractic was the only sort of alternative to traditional medicine at that point. And it just really resonated or attracted me to its approach towards helping the body naturally without external means. So that really interested me for some reason at a young age. My brothers and I came from a real challenging home when we were younger. Abusive parent, violent parent, and a father that was, again, abusive, and my parents didn't get along real well. So the other thing that sort of resonated with me really was when I went to see the chiropractor for the first time. Number one, it's kind of funny, but his name was Dr. Blessing, so people would say, hey, when they needed to make an appointment or get an adjustment, they'd say, I need to go get a blessing, which was pretty fun. But the other thing was that this guy really became a mentor to me. He was just, just a real role model, and he sort of took me under his wing. And just anytime I had questions about chiropractic or healthcare, he explained the philosophy of chiropractic to me, and he just really became kind of a good friend and someone that I could look up to, which I didn't have at that time in my life. Dr. Blessing, again, was always available, and as I got a little bit older, I graduated high school at 17, and really didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I just worked since I was 13, so I was always working. And eventually I figured out if I really want to do something, I'm going to need to go to college. And Dr. Blessing suggested I, continue or start on a chiropractic career. I wasn't totally sure of that. It seemed a little bit risky at that time. So, I started going to community college in an engineering program, and after about 1 or 2 semesters, I just really figured it really wasn't for me, and I switched my major to pre-med at that point. So the college I chose was called Sherman College of Chiropractic, and the reason I went there was because Dr. Blessing suggested that this is the college that had the best philosophy. At that time, chiropractic was divided into a couple different camps for different objectives. And he said Sherman College was really an offshoot of Palmer College and started by a lot of the professors that had gone to Palmer College just to really give the philosophy of how the body helps heal itself and that it was natural. So trusting his guidance, again, went to South Carolina, and I just remember getting there the first summer. I think the first semester started in June. It was just ungodly hot, and the days were 10 hours long. I just remember coming home and passing out on bed at 3 o'clock in the afternoon just because it was so hot. Getting to the end of that was just really enjoyable. We had to take national boards for the ability to get ourselves licensed in different areas, so there were definitely some key stress points along the way. When I finished chiropractic school in 1985, a semester before then they had a thing called an externship where you could go to a chiropractor's office and observe, and the first place that the college found me was in the New Jersey area, but it was kind of funny, the doctor really didn't want me there. It was sort of a weird situation, but lucky for me there was another doctor, and he's become a lifetime friend, Dr. Michael Hadrack, that lived about 2 blocks from where my brother had lived, my older brother. So my older brother Frank let me live with him, and I went to Dr. Hadrack's office, and that's where I sort of learned more about the day-to-day practice of chiropractic. And I ended up working with him after graduation, which was a great experience. And we had one of the largest practices in the southeastern part of Pennsylvania, New Jersey area. Just saw lots and lots of people, and I just gained lots and lots of information, clinical skills, business skills, and everything. Mike is still a very good friend today. He works with the NFL. He has an office in Atlanta with a number of docs working for him, and we're just as close today as we were 40 years ago, which is, again, just a testament to his friendship and clinical skills and desire. So I really consider myself lucky to know someone like him. As enjoyable as working with Mike was, I just really had a strong desire. I needed to do my own thing. I just felt like that wasn't always envisioned for myself. And part of it was being naive. I might do something different today, but that itch had to be scratched. So I was looking around where to practice, and in northern Bucks County, which is about an hour north of Philadelphia, I found a spot that was the name of the town was called Plumsteadville, Pennsylvania. And we found a office space that was literally an old church. In 1987, a couple months into the year, I signed a lease and said, okay, we're going to do this. Dr. Blessing was a huge part of that, supporting me. And that process, again, took about 4 or 5 months to get the space built out. Became great friends with the optician next door as a young guy as well. And I didn't know the community at all. So what I had done at that point is I figured you need to get to know people. So I was in the printing business, and I had a kind of a funny, great idea, which is what I thought, is I created a 1-page letter to introduce myself to the community. And I got a whole case of paper, printed 5,000 sheets, and I hand-signed every single one of those letters. After about 1,000, my fingers started to hurt, and I was questioning my decision. But I wanted my energy on every single piece of paper that went out, and when people opened it from their mail, I wanted them to let them know that I really cared about them, I could help them, and kind of a little crazy energetic kind of thing, but I just considered it valuable to this day. My opening fee when I opened my practice was $10 a visit. At that point I was only doing adjustments and I just wanted to help as many people as I could. So it was $10 a visit, that's all there was, and I got busy just really fast. I went around to the community, to the pizza shops, post office, hardware store, and I'd say probably within a year everybody in town was a patient, which was very rewarding. I remember laying on my adjusting table, or in the early days, just listening to motivational tapes, and if the door opened up, I'd jump up and say, okay, who's that? Maybe that's a patient. So it was just a lot of fun at that point, but also just forced me to drive me into finding ways to talk to people about what I did. But again, I just had that desire to help people because I know what it had done for me. And early on, I just saw very quickly the changes that could occur with people getting adjusted. I had gone to racetracks at time. A patient had friends at a motorcycle racetrack. I'd gone up there. I took my portable table everywhere. I'd met a professional racer there that came over before the race. He was all messed up. He wins the race at this track, and he thanks me over the loudspeaker. He invites me to Atlanta to work on him. He wins that race, national championship. I get a little piece on that ESPN back in the day. Little fun things like that. I met a local young man that was pretty famous. At that age, he was only 21, but he ends up becoming world champion pistol shooter. And we develop a relationship, and he flies me out to different events around the country to take care of him while he's in competition. And Doug Koenig is still a very good friend of mine today. His nephews, two young boys, Corey and Kyle, had asthma as kids, and they started getting adjusted, and within probably 8 to 12 weeks their asthma completely went away. Another thing was, just all kinds of crazy stuff. I had a guy come in that was deaf in one ear, and I didn't know it at the time. He was referred by another patient. He was a mechanic, and he had all these problems in his back. He didn't tell me anything about his deafness. At that time, I had learned what's called network spinal analysis or network chiropractic, and when I started to adjust him, he was moving around on a table like a fish you took out of water, and within like 6 or 7 visits, he gets off the table, and he says, "Doc, I got to tell you something." I said, "What's that, Tom?" And he says, "I got my hearing back in my right ear." I said, "I didn't even know you were deaf in your right ear." He says, "No, I never tell anybody, but I was in a coma for a brief period when I was in the Army, and that's when it happened, and now it's gone." And I literally remember leaning against a wall and tears coming to my eyes saying, I can't believe this is possible. Other crazy things, it was a rural community, so people had animals. A couple patients brought dogs in. One dog in particular, 2 adjustments. They were going to put the dog down. The dog was fine. I know this stuff sounds crazy, but these are experiences I've had that continue to motivate me to say, if this is possible, I don't know what else is possible. And it's just unbelievably, rewarding helping people and animals and babies like that, of just saying these people are getting better without adding or taking anything out of their body. And that's still what my passion is today, is that we can help people have a better experience of themselves, less pain, more health, with a simple just turning on switches in the body, so to speak, making adjustments, and in this day doing other things that are super helpful. And just I just feel very fortunate to be in a profession that and a health choice that has that ability. It's pretty crazy. So in about 1992, I was still in Pennsylvania practicing, and I started to get some more and more sports people coming in. One I had mentioned was the pistol shooter, but then I met a couple of local guys that were triathletes, which I found really interesting. They were qualifying for the Hawaii Championship, so they were high-level guys, but they worked at the local bike shop, so I started working on them and got very interested in triathlon. I had done my first triathlon in 1994. But one of the things I found out in my profession is that I was sort of limited with my skill set. Early on, chiropractic was basically adjusting the spine. Everything came back to adjusting the spine. And I started to get a little frustrated because if somebody comes with an ankle problem or an elbow problem or a knee problem, my only option was adjust the spine, and that, or send them somewhere else. So I started to realize that I really needed to increase my skill set if I was going to help these people get better faster. At the same time, I was occasionally traveling back and forth to see my twin brother who lived in California at this time, and we were still riding motorcycles, and we had one big trip in the early 90s to the Southwest. We went through Utah, Arizona, Southern California, and just really fell in love with the place. Little did I know that how that would, fit into my future. Also in the early 90s, I met my future wife, and she had just finished her first year of medical school. She was from Montana. And, we just fell in love and started to think about a life together. She still had a few years in medical school, and, a big decision, but we decided to move out of that area in the mid-90s. Now, in medical school, when you're done medical school, you match to a residency program, and where she matched was the University of Utah, Salt Lake City. She had an aunt that lived there, but that's all we had known. We flew out, signed our life away to buy our first house, didn't have enough money to pay for it, but just figured this is something we had to do. The biggest thing for me was that I had to sell my practice and then moving to Utah, start a whole new practice without knowing anyone. Part of me was pretty excited. Part of me was pretty nervous as before, and it was, I'm not going to kid you, it was a challenge. So when we moved to Utah in 1995, and I had to figure out how am I going to build another practice like I did before. Now, Utah or Salt Lake City had a lot of chiropractors in it. Unlike the area that I was in, I was the only chiropractor in very rural areas. Salt Lake City was an established city and lots of chiropractors, and I quickly found out there's a lot of competition. And not from the area, I just had to figure out how to make a name for myself. So from a business standpoint, what I did is I would go to the home shows. There was 2 home shows every year down at the Salt Palace, Thursday to Sunday, and you buy a booth and you basically meet thousands of people, looking for home products. I figure if I'm going to build the practice, what do I do? I go where the spines are at, where the people are at. So I met lots of people there. It was very grueling, very wearing, but some of those patients that I had met, some of those people I had met are still patients today. So it was very rewarding. But again, just doing anything I could to get myself known. The other thing that occurred at that time is I reconnected with Dr. Hatrack, who at this point was in Atlanta, doing a lot of work with sports people. I had flown down to see him, and I was just amazed at some of the results he was getting so quickly. So he taught me a lot about his synergy technique, about adjusting people and working with extremities, and I started to incorporate that in my practice. That was tremendously helpful because Salt Lake City, unlike the area in Pennsylvania, had a lot of outdoor enthusiasts, a lot of people that had sports injuries. So I upped my game with better techniques and protocols for analysis and treatment, so we were able to get results faster. So I continued to communicate back and forth with Dr. Hatrack, build my skill set, and add other pieces to the equation. So things continued to advance in Salt Lake City. Practice was growing, and as luck would have it, my lease was coming up on my first building, and I wasn't sure I wanted to stay there. So I started looking around a little bit, and sure enough, 2001, there's a building down the street that I saw for sale, and I said, that might be interesting. So 2001, it took about 6 months to make everything happen, but I bought the current facility that I'm in right now, which is Utah Sports and Wellness. It is 3,300 square feet. Over the years, in the last 20-some years, we've completely remodeled everything, changed everything, and I think made it real nice, had created space for, as I said, acupuncturists and a couple massage therapists. We have a lecture area and plenty of treatment space now. And that was very rewarding for me, but it also, in all honesty, scared the bejesus out of me because having a mortgage now put a lot more pressure on me. but at the same time, again, I knew it was something I needed to do. Right around that time as well, I reconnected with Dr. Hatrack out of Atlanta, and as I said, I had made a few trips back and forth, and he invited me to some of the facilities that he was working with the NFL. So I'd gone to work with the Cincinnati Bengals, Kansas City Chiefs, Philadelphia Eagles, and using some of my skill set and then some of his, I just learned a lot on dealing with NFL players. The highlight of that for me was getting invited to work with the Philadelphia Eagles in 2017, the year that they won the Super Bowl. So that was just a real thrill for me to be involved with the team a little bit in that area and use some of the skill set that I have had there. Mike and I are still great friends today. We talk regularly, compare clinical notes, and are continue trying to find better solutions for problems for all people, not just athletes, but the average person. The way that we put everything together now that with all these techniques and protocols that I've learned over the years is that I have an algorithm that I put together. So regardless of where the patient's coming from, whether it's a simple ankle sprain or back pain, or something as complicated as mold toxicity or fibromyalgia, a variety of other things, regional pain syndrome, we'll spend time and talk to the patient a little bit literally and try to get a really good medical history about where this may have started and then lay out a protocol for patients. And in all honesty, for most patients, it shouldn't take more than 4 to 6 weeks to get a significant result improvement in their symptoms. And for most people, if it's not a super complex case, I tell people 5 to 10 visits, you should see at least a 50% improvement in what we do. We're just confident in what we're able to produce. And I also tell patients, I again put myself on the line, and I say, look, if we can't get a significant improvement in 4 or 8 weeks, I probably can't help you. This is not something that's going to take 3 months or 6 months or a year. We should get functional improvement and symptomatic improvement in a very short period of time if the patient follows my guidelines. Over the years, as I said, we've seen a lot of people. Tour de France stage winners, Academy Award winners, NFL players, world-class people. They're still people, but one of the things that has forced me again to get better is that these people's livelihoods are on the line, and you can't kind of what I call phone it in. You can't just sort of wait for things to happen. These people either are expecting results, the reason they came from you, and the person that referred, reputation is on the line as well. And you really, the difference between a professional and an amateur is professionals get results. And I don't want to just be a professional, I want to be the best professional possible. There was a situation years ago that Dr. Hatrack had a MVP and a Major League Baseball player that had a $250 million contract that wanted to see me, so he flew me to Florida twice to treat him. I was like amazed. This really super nice guy, lived in Florida, huge house, all these cool cars. But when push comes to shove, is that guy is there to get results. And that's why he hired me and paid me a bunch of money to come see him, is that you've got to get results, and those results have to be tangible almost immediately. So what that has allowed me to do is to take that skill set and bring it down to the everyday person. Moms and teachers, dads, business people, restaurant owners, whoever it may be, I still feel the same about them. I love them. I have a high expectation that we're going to fix the problem quickly. I'll be very honest and transparent with them. We have something what we call financial certainty in the office. You'll know what it's going to cost. So I really do believe we have the whole, enchilada. We're available for people. They can see us. We have a great facility. And these 38 professional years that I've had have been distilled down into me looking at a situation today. And I can't say we've seen everything, but we've seen a lot, and I'm pretty sure that we can find and solve your problem fairly quickly.